Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Finding exceptional talent has always been a battle, and it's something that businesses, big and small, spend a lot of time and money on. So how do you find great people for your team? Richard Triggs says companies typically use 3 avenues: referrals, advertising, and headhunting. Richard is a recruitment specialist and author of Winning the War for Talent: How to Attract and Retain Top Performers. But first, how's the current job market? Chris Ashmore asks Richard whether it's tougher now than ever to find those top performers.
I think that the job market is largely unchanged. I've been in recruiting, specifically in executive recruiting now for over 20 years. And really, for that entire period, it is always challenging to find excellent talent. It can be easy to find average talent, but finding really great talent is a consistent theme. I think really the main difference in recent years has been in this post-COVID environment, the desire for far greater work-life flexibility, which is really causing organisations to rethink how do they create and maintain an employer of choice brand, knowing that candidates want some fundamentally different things to what they wanted, say, 4 years ago.
Well, when it comes to filling a position, what avenues do you recommend, Richard, for companies to use to hire new candidates?
There are really 4 or 3 avenues, the third one being sort of multi-pronged, that employers and third-party recruiters can use. But the first one of those is really being intelligent about where you source referrals from. The second is advertising, which is what a lot of organisations are heavily reliant on, and yet the quality of advertising and the results that they're getting is definitely getting worse and worse for a few reasons, which I'm happy to share. And then the last one is headhunting. And of course, LinkedIn is an amazing tool now to enable people to identify where that talent is. And so a lot of organisations will provide their HR team or their recruitment team with a LinkedIn recruiter license, not realising that sending an email on LinkedIn is not the same as headhunting. So that's why I sort of split, LinkedIn recruiter and headhunting into 2 separate categories.
We'll have a look at that in a minute, but to go through the first one, so referral, would assume that is quite important for a company.
Definitely, and I think that organisations will probably do this to a small degree. Somebody resigns or they have a new project and they're thinking, who do I know that might be suitable? And they may ask a couple of people for some referrals, but the reality is that if you start to think about every possible source of referral, it could be your team can make referrals, your peers can make referrals, your boss can make referrals, the board could make referrals. And then what about your customers or your suppliers or other key people of influence in your industry? If you actually have a bit of a checklist, okay, this role has come up, who do we know in each of these different areas that we can proactively go to and say, who do you know? Because, of course, not only if somebody is making a referral are you avoiding paying recruitment fees, which is excellent, but secondly, if somebody's making a referral, you should have at least some confidence that the person is of a high enough quality, otherwise they wouldn't be referred. So, again, something that a lot of companies might do on a bit of a loose basis, but just by having some structure to that, the referral campaign will be much more successful.
Well, then we move on to advertising, and you said it's getting worse and worse. What do you mean?
Well, organisations have been building out recruitment teams for probably about 10 plus years now. And the reality is that a lot of the people they're recruiting into those teams are being overwhelmed with having massive numbers of jobs. And so as a result, what they're doing is they're writing ads which are fairly generic. They're not very well written. There's not really much of a what's in it for me factor for candidates. It's just a regurgitation of the position description. And I would say nowadays, at least 95% of advertisements, the recruiter is not putting their name or phone number on an ad. And so when you think about it, a good candidate wants to ring up and ask questions, particularly if the role might be with one of their competitors. So they see an ad, it's pretty generic, it doesn't give them the information they need, and so they think, oh, well, I want to ring up before I decide whether I'm going to apply. There's nobody to call, I'm not going to apply. Or alternatively, I get this all the time, candidates come to me and they say, Richard, we applied for this role with ABC Company 8 weeks ago. I've had no acknowledgement of my application. I have no awareness as to whether I'm under consideration. And of course, there's nobody's name that I can call up and ask to get an update on the status of my application. Incredibly damaging to organisations' employer of choice brand. So what I say to companies, if you take nothing else from my book or my presentations, always put somebody's name and phone number on an ad. Now, the internal recruiters are very, very reluctant to do that. And they'll say, oh, Richard, I'm too busy to talk to candidates. I've got too many other priorities. And so the reality is, and as you know, Chris, having spent a little bit of your time on the dark side of recruitment back in the day, if you don't want to talk to candidates, do a different job. Candidates are human beings. They need to be treated as such and not a commodity. And I can't believe that organisations are so blind to the opportunity costs that they're missing out on through relying on terrible ads which are attracting very average candidates.
Forvis Mazars. Same local team, new global reach. A new two-firm network still offering international audit, tax and advisory services, committed to helping our clients confidently build and grow their businesses. Move forward with Forvis Mazars. Visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.
Well, we move now on to headhunting, and I suppose for some listeners it might be a term that they're not quite used to. Can you fill us in?
Sure. So I used to work for another company, and I actually had a little group called Headhunting is Not a Dirty Word, because a lot of people have this view that headhunting is in some way nefarious or, a terrible activity. But the reality is, what does headhunting mean? Most candidates are in jobs that they like. They get on well with their boss. They're being relatively well paid. They are not actively looking for a new job. They are not reading ads. They're not replying to emails on LinkedIn. They are passive. And so if you want to attract these passive candidates, you have to headhunt them. What does headhunting mean? It means that you're calling them in their workplace and you're saying, hi, Chris, this is our line. Hi, Chris, my name's Richard from Arete Executive. We haven't spoken before, but I'm an executive search professional. I have a particular opportunity I'd like to share with you. If I could demonstrate that this is better than your current job, would you be open to having a talk about it? Now, of course, the person 9 times out of 10 will say, sure, because you're just asking them to have a conversation. And what you're wanting to do is to then sell the value of the opportunity to the candidate in order to engage them in the process. So that's what we call headhunting. We're headhunting passive candidates. Now, it's very difficult for internal recruiters to do that because they have to disclose who they work for. So pick a name, any name. Hi, my name's Mary. I'm calling from Rio Tinto. Well, the candidate will know, obviously, that the employer is Rio Tinto. And there may be some confidentiality around the role, or it may be that Rio Tinto don't want their competitors to know that they're trying to headhunt their staff. So where a role is of a senior leadership or mission-critical nature, it definitely makes sense to partner with a third-party headhunting specialist to do this work for you. But it definitely can be done. If you have somebody in your business that has the time and the capacity to do it, then headhunting will always get you a better quality of shortlist because you're attracting those people who you wouldn't have attracted through just an advertised campaign, which again is what most employers are reliant upon.
And related to this is using LinkedIn for your headhunting activities.
That's right. LinkedIn has become very much the tool of choice for both internal and external recruiters, in that what we're able to do is, using specific keywords, we can run searches and find people. So if, for example, sticking with the mining theme, we were asked for a chief financial officer of a listed mining company based in Brisbane that had worked for particular organisations in their career, I can easily engage one of my team to get onto LinkedIn Recruiter and using those keywords to come up with a very specific list of those people. So whereas in the past, headhunting was very time-consuming, it was very expensive, and a lot of the traditional headhunting firms are very expensive, and they would have needed 76 offices in 46 countries and big research teams to do this. It's now very, very easy. Typically, we can do not only Australian searches but international searches and come up with that target list in a matter of hours. So LinkedIn Recruiter, if you're an organisation that is recruiting regularly, it's not an inexpensive application, but it is definitely worth it.
Before we go, Richard, what are your thoughts on hiring for diversity?
I think that's an excellent question, and certainly something that we've seen a lot more of. When I first started in recruitment, if somebody was over the age of 50, there was definitely some bias towards wanting younger people. There was starting to be conversation about hiring more women, but there certainly wasn't any conversation about hiring people with disability or Indigenous people and so on. Fast forward 20 years, and now it's very much a part of every conversation. And the issue around ageism, we are now finding that employers are not concerned. They're saying, look, as long as somebody's got enough petrol in the tank, they're still keen to learn and keen to contribute. We don't care if they're 50, 55, 60, 65. In fact, we recruited somebody into a global role within the last couple of years who was 72. So diversity is very much at the forefront of people's minds. In saying that, my view is that you don't want to only hire for diversity. You want to hire people who've done it before, they've done it well, and they're motivated to do it again. Those people are much more likely to succeed in your job. However, if you can also find somebody who's female or, meets another diversity target's probably the wrong word, but, you have a particular desire, fantastic. Again, the issue becomes, if we put ads for mining engineers on Seek, 99% of applicants, if not 100%, will be men. So if our client particularly wants a female, then we need to go out and we need to headhunt that person. It's interesting that women, and this is a generalisation, but women will look at a job advertisement, and if it calls for 10 criteria and they've only got 7, they'll think, oh, it's not worth me applying because I only meet 7 out of 10. If a guy looks at an ad and they've got 3 out of 10, they go, I'm the best candidate and they've got to hire me. And again, I know it's a generalisation, but very much is, I see a lot of evidence about this. So from the employer's point of view, if you have a particular reason for wanting that diversity, then understand if you are going to achieve it, you're probably going to need to headhunt.
That was recruitment specialist Richard Triggs. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.